Okay, Chris Speaks back here today with Brandon Mosley for our BCS Tabletop Podcast, and we got former Secretary of State John Merrill here with us today. Secretary Merrill, so let's get right into it. How small is the turnout going to be Tuesday?
Oh, I think it'll be one of the poorest turnouts in the history of the state for an election. I'm thinking somewhere between um, 7 and 10% max in those four congressionally impacted districts.
John, is there a danger that a popular candidate like let's say Gary Palmer, who won pretty convincingly in May on this do-over deal could end up losing just because, a small pocket of voters came out for his opponent?
I would agree with that, Brandon, if the circumstances were a little bit different. For example, when we had the race for Congressman Palmer back in 2024, there were some well-funded candidates that sought the nomination, including Garrett Wilkins being chief among them. But they're lacking that candidate this particular time. So there's a number of people who will not even vote because they're not even aware that there is a primary for nominating the member of Congress. And as strong a candidate as some people think Case Dixon might be, it's going to be difficult for him to upend um, Congressman Palmer simply because I don't know that his ground game is strong enough to get his people out to replace Congressman Palmer as the nominee. I will tell you, it reminds me of the election that they had back in 1983. And that election was not for the nomination because, as you will recall, Chris, I don't even know if Chris was born when this happened, but when the Republican Party, uh, it was before they ever had nomination primaries, the Democratic Party elected not to have one. They just selected candidates and put them in the legislative seats, all 140 seats that they contested, 105 House seats, 35 Senate seats, and then they had candidates run against each other. Roy Johnson was the Speaker pro tem of the House of Representatives, one of the most powerful people in Montgomery. And there was a Republican candidate named Clayton Davis, who was an avowed racist, member of the Ku Klux Klan. If my memory serves, he came within 163 votes of beating Roy Johnson in that special election back in 1983. So it's the kind of thing that you're looking at, but it's not likely to happen because those people are not very well funded.
Secretary Merrill, I've noticed here of late that I know we won't be able to see the financials until after this is over with. That Case Dixon has some billboards going up, and I know those are not inexpensive. Is there money coming in? That I mean, obviously there's money coming in, but where do you think it is? I mean, is Palmer upset some people?
Well, it's difficult to say, but when someone's been in Congress for 16 years, and Congressman Palmer has been there for 16 years, um, well, actually, he got elected in 14, so he took office in January of 15. So he's been there for 10, 11 years at this point, finishing his sixth term. You're going to make some enemies and you're going to irritate some people and you're going to cause some people to be less supportive than they may have been before. But it takes a lot to defeat an incumbent congressman in our state. It's not something that happens frequently. Uh, as a matter of fact, only 21 times in the history of the state has someone served one term in the Congress. And the last time that we had a member that was defeated, that was an established member, was Earl Hilliard when Arthur Davis beat him back in 2000, um, a few years ago.
Is Jerry Carl looking pretty safe in one, or is there momentum behind Austin Sidwell?
No, no, no. I think Congressman Carl is. I think the sure bets, and of course Terry Sewell did not have a Democrat running against her for the nomination. Shamari Figures doesn't really have anybody running against him. Those two are secured in their nominations. I think Congressman Carl is secure in the Republican nomination. I think if you ask me to lay money on what would be the most competitive race, I think the most competitive race is going to be Congressional District 2, the Republican nomination for that seat. And that, of course, is the Rep Marcus seat that has Josh McKee in it, has um, young man from Lowndes County,
Hampton Harris.
Harris in there, who's run a good campaign. Um, I, I know young man that grew up in Houston County that worked for the president, David Matthews. There's some more viable and stronger candidates in that race than there seems to be any of the other races.
Secretary Merrill, along the same lines, we've been told the numbers I've seen, they're kind of all over the place, but we've been told Representative Marquise is the odds-on favorite. As you well know, and other people who followed this, Saturday morning I came across some very interesting documents. I know that right now on my website, it's gotten thousands of views. There's been hundreds of shares on social media. Is this enough to move the needle, or are people already decided who they're voting for?
Well, I think it is enough to move the needle, but I don't know if it's enough to move the needle in time to keep him from getting the nomination. I do think if he is the nominee, this information will be gone over with a fine tooth comb and could potentially be very harmful in the general election in November against Congressman Figures, which could result in State Representative Marcus losing his ability to become the member of Congress November the 3rd.
Is do we have any do you have any feel on the Democrat primary in six where there's like Pilkington and three other people are like running for that? I mean, I've not heard anything from any of those folks.
No, I haven't either. I don't think that the nominee for the Democratic Party in the 6th Congressional District is going to have a chance to be successful on November the 3rd. It's a perfunctory matter.
Secretary Merrill, I was examining the traffic over the last few days of this when it first started coming out. As of late yesterday and today, it was from all over the Wiregrass. The first days, it was coming straight out of Enterprise in D.C. Do you think that were Senator Brett's people or backing him? They're trying to find out how damaging this is.
I think a number of people in that area where Rhett represents were obviously going to be more in tune to the message and wanting to know exactly what was being said and how it could be um, impactful in the race, and also how damage control could be implemented to keep it from being any more harmful than it might have been otherwise. So I do think all of those things were important to the people who've been supportive of Rep Marcus's campaign.
Uh, Secretary Merrill, we have two Republicans running in Congressional District 7 tomorrow to decide who will be the nominee. Does the GOP nominee in 7 have any shot at unseating Terry Sewell in the fall?
Very, very difficult. Terry Sewell is looked at nationally as one of the most important leaders of the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. I think that having the chance to move her out of that seat will be extraordinarily difficult. If it means that they want to have um, President Obama come to the district and campaign for her to make sure that she wins, he'll be here. If they want to have President Biden or a surrogate for President Biden like Dr. Jill Biden or a recorded message from President Biden, they'll do that. If they want to have President Clinton or Secretary Clinton come here, and those people, as we know, are the key national figures in the Democratic Party, I think they'll pull out all the stops to make sure she retains the seat. I don't think that we can get a true feel on how that Republican nomination is going to go. I think David Perry is the grassroots candidate. He has no money. He is from the heart of the district in Dallas County. Uh, Amy Atkins from Mountain Brook does not actually live in the district, but she has been campaigning all over the district. She's been spending an extraordinarily high amount of money on social media promoting her campaign. I don't know how many of those people that live in that district will actually be receiving the message, because I don't know how many of them actually have social media accounts that can receive the message, and how active they will be in getting out and actually voting for her tomorrow. So I think you could see David Perry win that seat. I do think it's going to be more difficult for Amy to win that seat in November if she is the nominee.
Secretary Merrill, back in 2024 in that 7th congressional district race, I remember Bill Baxley told me that there would be that Terry would never be in trouble. There was enough white voters there that liked her. And sure enough, when you looked at the final results, Robin Lydecker, she underperformed the president, meaning people were voting for President Trump and then turn around voting for Terry Sewell. Do you think we could see that in the 2nd congressional district? Because I've heard rumblings that there are people that they're okay with Shamari who would normally vote for the Republican candidate.
I think the potential is very high for Shamari to outperform what the projection would be. He's very intelligent, very articulate, attractive candidate, somebody that has not tried to be a show horse since he's been in the Congress, but to be a workhorse, trying to concentrate on improving his district. And I think that a number of people have taken note of that in Birmingham, in Mobile, in Montgomery. And I think they're rewarding him financially, and they're rewarding him with their support.
This past month, it seemed like the Tuberville campaign slipped a little bit. They took a very pro data center, pro growth message, and I think recent polling shows like 80% of Alabamians oppose data center, expansion. And he was out fundraised 2-1, really for the first time, by Doug Jones. Is the Tuberville campaign? I mean, we had a poll that just showed him with an 8-point lead. Did they flounder a little bit, or is
They
this nothing to worry about?
they haven't floundered at all, and this is not something to be worried or concerned about. I do think that it's interesting about the fundraising, but you also have to realize how much money Coach has got in his campaign war chest. And Senator
Yeah, he
Jones,
has a 5-1 lead in actual money in cash on hand.
exactly. So it makes a tremendous difference when you're talking about how many people have already given money to Coach Tuberville, and now the number of people that are trying to come out and support Senator Jones. It is funny when someone says, well, they outraised him 2-1 in this particular quarter or this particular
Just
month,
in 1 month.
reporting period, and then it says that means that there's a blue wave coming. Well, you can outraise somebody $100 to $10, and that's obviously a big difference. But if that person with 100 already had 1,000 in the bank, and that was all, and the person with $1 or $10 had actually 10,000 in the bank, the bottom line is, how much money do you have in the bank that you can spend today to promote your candidacy? And Coach Tuberville far exceeds Senator Jones.
Hey, Secretary Merrill, I think you had to go like at 1:15. Do you have time for one more question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so regarding that poll, with 8-point lead is very healthy, but sorry, the first thing that jumped out to me that was eye-opening with is he is holding Senator Tuberville under 50% with less than 90 days ago. Should they not be concerned with that?
No, I shouldn't be concerned about that, because you're going to have a number of people who are not willing to identify themselves as supporters now or as Republicans, but you're going to have an all out media blitz. Um, Coach Tuberville did not have to spend any money in the primary effort to secure the nomination. And they've got these resources that they can invest any way they want to make sure their ground game is as strong as it needs to be. Coach will be all over the state like he was when he was running for the Senate back in 2020. And I think you're going to see a tremendous landslide of support for Coach Tuberville on November the 3rd.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Secretary Merrill. I don't want to hold you up for your next meeting. Sorry about the problems. I don't know what's going on with this modern technology, I guess.
Problem, we'll get it corrected next time. Y'all have a great
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for being on, Secretary.